Interesting how that shifted everything. All right, so now we are live. Welcome to episode 20 of Parlez with Sensei Shui. Today we will be talking about finding spiritual balance. So when I'm talking about spiritual balance, I'm referring to, let me go ahead and turn these buzzers off before I really dive into this. When we really go into finding your spiritual balance, what I'm speaking about, you see people say the yin, the yang, the masculine, the feminine energy, divine goddess. Honestly, what's interesting now that I think about it, I only see the divine goddess, but I don't see someone saying the divine God, right? Very interesting case in point. Or it could just be what my media looks like. But with speaking on these things, I find it's really important because I think about a time in my life when I was 15 or 16, just really running around. I remember this one time I was at a swim meet and I was so determined to get what I wanted, to get something that I wanted to accomplish, that I told everyone, hey, you know what? I'm going to get first place. Hey, I'm about to win this thing. Yeah, my friends are up in the stands. They're watching me. They're watching me do this thing. I'm about to go. I'm about to go. I'm going to make it happen. Like, no matter what, I'm going to make it happen. This is for me. I'm going to make this happen. Only to be behind the blocks, my heart's pounding. My palms are starting to sweat. I think it's water, but it's not. I go and swim. I don't get how I am, and I feel disappointed in myself. And how was this disappointment seen? It was met with anger. It was met with rage at myself. It was this sense of, oh, well, I wasted all my time, so why am I even doing this? Why am I even going about these things if I'm going to get this result? What's the whole point of everything? And feeling this detached, and I would even say jaded about this event, I realized that was a masculine imbalance. I was trying to force things so much that I wasn't going with the flow. And I want to have another sense of clarity here. When I'm saying balance, when I say masculine and feminine, I do not mean man and woman or cis man, cis woman. When I say masculine and feminine, I'm speaking of like the two sides of a battery that is one. Because we all, whether you like it or not, you have both polarities within you. And in balancing in these is when you find the harmony within yourself, then you start to begin to harmonize with life around you. And only then when you harmonize with life around you, will you then see that life begins to flow in its nature, just like the river. But in the same way, the river had to harmonize within itself, because if you've ever seen something that's dried up before, with all these changes happening in our climate, once it dries up, as it's drying up, the river will start to take different paths. And when it rains, it might even start to take a new path, but sometimes carrying down that same source, that same way whence it came. Please ask questions. I'll end this in 10 minutes. Well, at the 10-minute mark, so in 7 minutes if there are no questions. Just to really focus on these things. When I say how to balance ourselves, or the importance of spiritual balance, because when I see people going out into extreme substance use, when I speak of substance, I'm speaking of alcohol, I'm speaking of cannabis, I'm speaking of any type of psychedelic, I'm talking about ecstasy, I'm talking about anything. I find very spiritual people often get drawn to these things because it's a natural sense of stimulation, or this hidden void that's within that we unconsciously go out to seek, thinking that we're looking for a good time or looking to, you could say, escape reality, when in truth, what it is that you need to learn how to fill is to fill yourself from within. This always comes back to meditation. And with that, it always comes back to balance, and learn how to balance yourself. And when I say balance, I'm addressing the aspect of more when you're trying to be too logical versus going to in the flow, this aspect of balance and how important that is within yourself. Because as you find balance within yourself, you will find balance in your interaction with others. It is nature in itself to seek balance, to seek equilibrium. Once something tips over too much far, that is when issues, anger, spite, anxiety, depression, insecurity start to set in, is when it's this lack of balance. this lack of going within, looking outside for what's really within. But, well, then how do I do it? Message me and then we could talk about this further because every person is a little bit different. Or ask a question. Please ask a question. I have 5 more minutes without any questions, and then I'll be turning it off if there are no questions. Because the importance of balance is you'll start to realize and really wake up to how externally that is what is being preyed upon when you're on these apps, when you're on these different screens. What they're searching for is for you to look outside of what's already within. You've probably seen this enough that a lot of these apps are designed to make people depressed. A lot of these apps are designed to make people anxious. Why? Because in these states, the coping mechanisms that have been programmed into you are to use these apps, which ironically give you more anxiety, more depression, which in this weird sadistic feedback loop has you coming back to use these apps. One of the favorite sayings that I've seen is that if the app is free, then you are the product. You need to wake up and realize these types of things about what is being used. And if it's you, how to, I won't say as much take control, but start to have awareness around these things. And how to start to select what it is that you engage in, start to balance what it is that you do, start to learn how to go inside for this external validation that you may be unconsciously seeking, or source of entertainment, or what I like to say, coping. Because when it comes to coping, I don't like that word cope, because all that is delaying something behind you as it continues to chase you. Rather, what you need to learn how to do is accept the reality that you are in, and accepting the reality, then you can start to make changes. Because how can you truly make changes if you do not even know what it is that you are accepting? Because upon acceptance with these changes, will you begin to actually learn the current of the ocean to then surf on the waves? Too much awareness gives you anxiety in a way of not enough awareness makes you feel stagnant. But in the same way, when you have the anxiety, what are you doing to ground yourself? Because the awareness can make you anxious when you don't have a sense or a system in order to ground yourself spiritually. And when I speak of grounding yourself spiritually, I truly mean a practice. I'm not speaking about getting some fancy rock or, checking out your horoscope. Like, what are you doing to truly, when it comes for the magnet cosmic, because you see it all on TikTok, you probably see it about going with, oh, you're divine energy, you're an interdimensional being. Yeah, well, if you're really one of these interdimensional beings, if you're a light worker, if you identify with any of these things, to truly progress in what your service is to do, you need to learn how to truly ground yourself. That's why I'm saying Qigong. That's what I'm looking at. Look at like Tibetan different types of meditations. If you're truly curious, message me or comment on one of my posts, and then we can like really move forward with this stuff. Because it is very, very important that people start to understand these things. That in order to start to take yourself out of these anxieties, you need to start to become aware of what it is that is causing you the anxiety in the first place. And some of these, yes, the awareness is, but I would say awareness might not be the word. I rather say that the word is rather stimulation. When we're overstimulated and thinking too much about the future, about what may happen, whatever this account said, whatever this person's saying, that has in your mind, thinking more so about what may happen, and then programming you into saying that it will happen, and your belief being so concerned about its fruition, about, well, they're doing all these things and they're recording our conversations and, oh, the vaccines and, oh, COVID. Well, what are you doing about yourself? What are you doing about the way your own household? How do you experience love in yourself? Do you even accept yourself? And when I say accept yourself of all the flaws and the mistakes that you've made through life, I've made a whole lot of mistakes. But it's with accepting these things have given me the comfort to know whatever happens, I'm okay. Because I know that within my being, from the practices and the connection I have on a daily basis. And this is based on literally feeding my soul. All right. When I say feeding my soul, I'm not talking about listening to music to distract me from my thoughts. I'm literally speaking on this time literally on a mat. Yes, walking and drawing and other things are forms of meditation, but the classical harnessing the chi, harnessing prana, orgone energy, whatever you want to call it, what it is, divine love, the same word, what makes up the fabric of the universe, that's the same thing that builds your body. Like, oh, you're made of stardust, I'm a light worker, I'm a star seed. Yeah, you're made of that stuff. So learn how to harness that stuff within your own body, within your own heart, within your own mind, within your own gut. Align yourself. That's what this thing, right? All the chakras in one line. When they say I and it's one word, that's why I like to use the one, like the letter I, because it's your causal, your spine, all the neurons, all the electricity within your body. You see these toroidal fields, it goes inside a middle point. That's in reality of what you are. Yes, you're inhabiting a human body, but you get caught up and you get so anxious and you get so depressed because your soul's being fed. You're trying to play a character and forgetting that you are playing a character. You are not the character. And in this awareness of this, yeah, it's a little detaching and it's like can have some freak out moments, but with the correct breathing practices, when I say a quick one, not a shoulda, literally breathe in, you could say there's different ways. Breathe in the right nose, out the left, in the left, out the right. To help balance yourself, or the 9 cleansing breaths of Tibet. It's in the right, out the left. And you do that 3 times. When it's coming in, down, out. Last one, in, down, out. Now, in, down, out. You do the same. In, down, out. In, out. Not at this pace. This is for the sake of demonstration. And then 3 breaths normal. What do you do for depression? So you could say, what is it that I do for depression? I would say it starts with awareness of accepting your past, because I like to say these very simple things. Your uncle just died and you're really depressed. So I would say it. One, I would say my condolences. And I say my condolences because if you are one to read the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. That's something that really helped me understand it. And I will say when we have family that passes, accept the tears, accept everything and let it flow out. If you repress it, that's just going to show up and stagnate. I could say the depression, I would say something is classified as a depression when it's lasting for over, say, a month or 2. If you just had a death in the family, like last week or something like that, and you're still sad about that, that's the grieving process. This is something very normal. However, this was something that was happening earlier, then that is a sign of really depression. Like, I'm not saying you're depressed, it's not existent. I'm saying you want to be cautious about what terms and what words that you're using yourself to identify with. Because sometimes when you identify with a certain word or a phrase, then you become that word, right? It happens in all ways. When you hear the affirmations like, oh, I'm happy, I'm terrific, I'm grateful, I'm full of love. Same way when we're saying, oh, if you say you're depressed, when you say I'm anxious, right? What will that do? The more you say it, you bring it into reality from your speech. So you want to make sure that you're changing your words and watching what it is that the spells you're casting through your words. But when you have a death in the family, I would say focus on the positive things that you have gained and learned from this person. Focus on the lessons of which they've taught you. And in their way, their physical form may have died, but the lessons and their wisdom still live on within you today. Regardless of what has happened, the reality is every single person will die. Just like we are born is when we die. Yeah, I understand that. So you've been depressed and I'm unhappy with myself, but this adds more. So with it, I would say it's a one-on-one type of thing, But a lot of this, I would say, practicing affirmations, teaching some qigong, because depression comes by reflecting on the past too much and living in the past and not being in the present. So are there things that you've done that you regret? Has there been like a breakup that's happened or something within the past that, you think about every single night that you try to get away from, but it comes back? I don't know if you use substances. So if it's unhappiness, what is the unhappiness towards? Is it towards yourself or is it towards an external situation? Because when it comes to these different things in our lives, it's how I started out before. When it comes in coming into balance, all right? If I'm going to speak on a polarity aspect of these things, I'd almost say a depression would be almost a balance of the feminine, the receiving energy, all right? It coming in too much without it going out. The river is not flowing. Anxiety would be a masculine imbalance. Too much going without any type of receiving, without a stream having a steadiness to it. It's either receiving too much and stagnating, growing mold, growing bacteria, or it's moving too fast and destroying everything in its path. Not able to see the bottom in both situations. So within the depression, because I've been there too, new phone, who dis, extreme. In these moments, what was key for me to get out of it was, as strange as that sounds, you have to actually want to get out of it. Because oftentimes when I found myself depressed, there's a part of me that found comfort in the depression and the attention that I received from it, or rather this lack of attention and the ability to keep to myself and then sleep a lot and then dream a lot. And it was this weird sense of comfort in the shit, this weird sense of comfort in this times that aren't really that comfortable. And what I really had to do was make a conscious decision that I wanted to get out of this, that I need to make a change because it's affecting the lives of the people around me, because it's affecting my own life. It's affecting the way that I can interact and truly help others. When we have this sense of depression, when we have this sense of anxiety, oftentimes I see people say, my anxiety, oh, my depression, just like my shirt. It's something that's attached to the identity of what this person thinks of themselves. Their sense of, you can say the ego, right? The ego, sense of self, right? It's become to that. To get out of it, what you'll need to do is literally say, a part of you, I do not want to be depressed anymore because of this, and this. It causes me this and this and this. So I'll talk about myself, right? Do you recommend a practice to help a lack of identity or self-confidence? So the 9 cleansing breaths that I taught helps a whole lot. But one of the biggest thing is like affirmations, right? And when I say affirmations, do them consciously. So not like, oh, I'm loving, I'm happy, I'm terrific, I'm so confident in myself, I'm pretty, I'm beautiful, right? Being like, I'm beautiful. God damn, I'm sexy. I'm so happy right now. Oh, I feel terrific. I'm full of gratitude. Because the universe doesn't understand words, right? It understands feelings, it understands emotion. And doing these difficult things actually is what makes progress, right? When you want to do something and make a change, you actually have to get uncomfortable to do it. Literally, that's what growth looks like. Everyone here has experienced some type of growth spurt and your knees hurt, or like if you're like me, it was like your shoulders and you woke up and a hand would be numb or something when you're growing, or like my knees would just like randomly like pop when I'm walking in a painful way. Growing pains. Likewise, when you want to have growth, when you want to get out of depression, when you want to get out of anxiety, when you want to overcome these things, you have to first make a decision to want to do it. And 2, truly understand when you're wanting to do it, a lot of it's confronting yourself. A lot of it is actually overcoming these things. A lot of it is going out and meeting new people and moving. Like a lot of these things, like sometimes if you're anxious, you need to slow down. If you're depressed, you need to go out and move, right? You need to go outside. You need to meet people, right? Just for the sake of everything's on stuff, wear a mask, right? but meet people. You could still talk and interact with other human beings, not on a screen. You could still walk around. I would like to say qigong, like especially for self-confidence, depression, anxiety, all this stuff. Learning how to move these energies within your body is very important because we get a stagnation from not moving at all. And it messes with your aura even when you try to avoid it. So that's the thing, messes with my aura. So when you're saying, and it feels like it messes with my aura, Peaceful J, when in return, it makes my body feel like it's in literal pain. So what are you speaking of? So if you're speaking of the practices I'm doing, it's just like, actually, my cousin, he got shot like 2-3 weeks ago, right? He had a bullet in himself. So yeah, thank you. I like Void. So when it comes into like, if you're speaking of the pain you experience when you do energy exercises or meditations, like literally my cousin got shot 2 or 3 weeks ago. He had a bullet in his side. You know what they had to do to get the bullet out? They had to make the hole bigger so they could take it out and then it could heal itself. Likewise, if you've ever had a splinter or you've ever had a cut, and sometimes, or if you've ever had a tattoo or ever or have a tattoo, getting it wasn't the worst part. It's the healing aspect of the tattoo. It's the healing aspect of the bullet wound. It's the healing aspect of the scar. I got stitches by my eye. Got my eye cut open when I was swimming. I headbutted with someone. My goggles cut me in my face. Right? Interesting story for another day. But the whole thing with this is this avoidance of pain, ironically, brings more pain. Because when you're wanting to grow and wanting to make changes, this discomfort is experienced as pain, right? But if you don't do anything, you stay in the same spot, it's this weird sense of comfort with like, oh, this pain is like, I actually know what's going to come, so it's okay. Like, I'll deal with this pain. Like, it's okay. Like, was really interesting to me. No judgment. I'm going to talk about myself. It took me so many times to actually be drinking, wake up with a hangover, and I say, I don't want to do this anymore. For me to, with my head's banging and my stomach hurts, for me to actually stop doing that, to actually listen to myself, to actually understand this pain that I was used to was much less than the pain that I'm going to experience when I'm actually confronting my feelings being sober. It's this avoidance of pain. Like, when I speak of this and then people log off, right? Because it's a thing that people don't want to hear. Like, a lot of things on this, like, you need to be conscious on. It makes you feel good in the moment, but then it ends up making you more depressed or more anxious because in a weird way it's designed to do, because it's not giving you the tools to equip yourself for this awareness, how like the universe works in feelings. And you need to take action to do something. And the action needs to be not on your phone. It needs to be sitting on a mat. It needs to be doing some yoga. It needs to be going for a walk with conscious breathing, leaving the phone at home, walking outside. Like, it needs to be actually talking with these people, like talking, like for me, actually speaking with my mother, actually speaking with my father, actually healing these relationships, confronting the friends that I had disagreements with, forgiving them, forgiving myself. Actually, this is what it legitimately looks like. Not just, oh yeah, like my amethyst and open my third eye. Oh my God. Like, no. What it actually looks like is accepting the wrongs you've done to others and realize it's almost just as you did them to yourself, forgiving yourself consistently, forgiving others, communicating to others about the wrongs you have done, and apologizing for what has happened. It's about communicating these things and doing these hard things that truly lead to growth, that truly lead to, you could say, the third eyes opening and everything up, right? Is by confronting ourselves and shedding these weights that weigh our downs on our shoulders. Breathing is a great way to do this. Why? Because it's something that is done unconsciously. And when you start to control your breathing, it's a bridge between your conscious and your subconscious mind. And so by consciously monitoring the breath or consciously breathing and manipulating it, this allows you to start to actually change the way these subconscious beliefs that also show up as habits. Because what is a habit? A habit is something that you do unconsciously. That's what a habit is. It's an action that you do unconsciously. In order to bring first awareness to this, and then once you have awareness, the step 2 is action to make a change. And then the action, step 3, there should be a third A, but it's consistency. You need the consistency in action to actually make a difference. Just like anything in life, the key to anything growing and coming to or wanting to do it is consistency. Like there's no way to get around that. You must be consistent to actually see the results. You must be consistent in your desire and your actions daily to get out of a lack of self-confidence, and reading these affirmations to yourself when you rise, before you go to sleep, every single day, no matter what, even the days when you're crying, even the days when there's other things going on, especially those days when you want to get out of depression, to even when it's uncomfortable and you just want to smoke a bowl and watch Rick and Morty, to not do that, to actually go outside for a walk, or like go call someone, go move, go actually throw some things away that do not serve you. If you're feeling anxious, start to write down the things that are actually doing this. And sometimes when you write down things that make you more anxious, yeah, sometimes it could bring it up, but then addressing these things, realizing that the story that you're telling yourself over and over again, to start to breathe, to slow down. And if any of these things, accepting that if you really need help, you can do it here on the comments, but the best way is to actually seek out someone like me, someone that you connect with and resonate in your heart, and working with them to help get you to where you need to go. Because think about it, you even learn how to walk or eat straight up from like others helping each other out. We are a collaborative species. Yeah, get to the bottom of whatever true fear is causing the anxiety. And fear, I like to say, it's an acronym, right? It's false evidence appearing real, right? It's some story that we're telling ourselves that we've blown up to make it think that, oh, no, and always ends up interesting thing. It always comes back, oh, am I going to die? Right? Very interesting, right? Because it could be like, for example, when it comes to one of the biggest fears that exists in the world is public speaking. Why? Because it's about being in front of others and messing up and thinking someone's not going to like you and judge you. Why does this even exist? Because you could say thousands of years ago, when we were more, not even thousands, like 300 years ago, when we were kind of not as tribal, but in our societies, if someone didn't like you in your society, they'd kick you out and you'd be out just to kind of like live on your own. If the village didn't like you, you'd probably actually die. 400 or 500 years ago, before there was like, general access to running water, most of the places, and that aspect still evolved throughout our brain to think like, oh, well, if I talk to someone, they'll judge me, then, like I'm afraid of this. But really writing these things out, and as weird as it sounds, is confronting these fears. And confronting these fears helps us get over it, because if we continue to run away from it, it always continues to chase us, because the origin of a lot of these fears is our own thinking. Events are neutral in the way that they happen. It's the emotions and the story that you tell yourself about why it happened is the reason why this fear or this anxiety or this depression or this lack of self-confidence exists. For example, with me, when I had low self-esteem as a teenager, it was because I was a swimmer. And literally someone called fat and that I wasn't muscular. Just some random person passing by, right? And I took it to heart. I took it very hard, and it did not feel good. Why? Because I believed the words that they said, right? How did I change this? I realized this person saying this probably felt the same way about themselves. They were hurt, coming from a very hurt place. And somehow justified in their mind making someone else feel the same pain as them as this weird way of like sharing. In their own pain, they said this to me because they were insecure about themselves and to try to help themselves feel more secure, they tried to make me feel insecure, which at that time worked for a short period of time. But what was it? It was a neutral event that the story that I colored it in with, yeah, people reflect what's going on inside them, but also realize that the reflections we get from other people are always flawed, because it's almost like looking at a dirty mirror, because we've all had traumas or some crazy shit happen to us that distorts our picture of reality. So that's one thing that you want to add on to all these quotes you see on your TikToks and your Instagram feeds, or these, people talking to you about everyone is a reflection of you. Well, yeah, it's like a reflection of you that's been distorted, because they're also coming from their own sense and their sense of self in them that's distorting that energy coming back to you. Because even as you get to more of an unselfishly loving place, you'll continue to be dealing with these reflections of people, right? Reflecting aspects of you that once were hidden, because the reality of a lot of these things is the capacity to do and to behave exists in all humanity. The reason why someone treats you or reacts some way is always for your growth. But what that legitimately means for your growth, like I was discussing earlier, is it will put you in a place that's uncomfortable. It would put you in a place to kind of step back and actually see, to react. Like true, you do the spiritual cultivation on the mat or whatever your practice is, but the really comes into play when there's an argument or someone calls you out on something, and actually taking that from a place of acceptance, or just like flowing with it and not meeting the energy of where it's at. Being able to like see it and be like, oh, okay. This person's kind of mad. They probably are rushing, not like, not, if you've ever read the book 4 Agreements, not taking everything personally. Do not take everything personally. But really, when you realize how much you do this, it brings a lot of insight into the nature of your interactions with the world. So all this was talking about balance, right? Because to bring it home, unless there's any other questions, and I'm just going to go ahead and close out. When it comes into balance, the importance of balance is to be aligned with your tendencies to take action, the logic, along with the tendencies to receive and be intuitive, to sit, to meditate. But anything in too much leads to these imbalances that manifest as anxiety, lack of confidence, insecurity, depression, not able to be consistent. A lot of these things show up from a lack of these balance of energies within, and a lack of balance of our truly knowing how important it is to really, if you take your spiritual life seriously, or if you identify as a starseed, a light worker, whatever different terms they keep using to make up a Jedi, I don't even know what they call themselves, a starseed, any of these things, a real aspect of all this stuff of balancing out isn't reading stories of, like the Lyran or like Sirius star civilization. It's actually sitting down, meditating every single day, doing some yoga, doing some type of movement. It doesn't even have to be yoga. Yoga literally itself means divine connection. So when I'm saying doing yoga, I'm literally saying like putting that time in to connect with yourself and with others. Yeah. Peaceful J, thank you. And also follow me on Instagram at Sensei Shui if you want to talk to me directly. And then we could hop on a call and like I could really help you out with where you need to go in your life. Because I do work with people one-on-one. I do this as a service to give, but especially if you're really serious about overcoming these things, follow me on Instagram and then message me there, and then we'll just go forward from it. But I'm grateful for you too, and I'm grateful for your appreciation, because without everyone commenting, there would be none of this. None of this would exist. Like I said, humans are a collaborative species. We need each other to keep moving forward. Whatever you're seeing about, oh, you don't need nobody, it's like run, like that type of stuff. But for real though, because if someone's trying to have you think that you can do things without the assistance of others, that's called narcissism. That's called selfishness. That's called delusion, right? You want to make sure that you understand that just like you've probably seen these, that the trees, the plants, the dogs, the cows, everything nature, we're all one on this earth. When you truly realize that, you understand that helping someone else out is in a same odd way is actually helping yourself. And we must have chapstick hoarder. Interesting. We must have drink your water. We must have human connection in order to, one, I will say, be sane, to two, feel value, and to three, truly progress in life. And so with these three things, I leave you with that. Remember to breathe, remember to meditate. And when you decide that you no longer want to be anxious, you no longer want to be depressed, you no longer want to feel insecure, make that decision to move out and then seek out help. I help people with this. If you find someone else you resonate with, seek them out. But oftentimes we need help to pull ourselves out, and for someone who has walked that path to show us the way. And until next time, I will see you in 2 weeks. And until then, have a nice day and namaste. Thank you for joining me. I wish